Now, as part of his sweeping imposition of tariffs, US President Donald Trump has already hit India with a 25% levy. An additional 25% kicks in on Wednesday to punish India for continuing to buy oil from Russia. Let's get more from our reporter, Vedika Sud, in New Delhi. Welcome, Vedika. How are these tariffs likely to affect the country's economy?
Well, these tariffs are to hit some of India's biggest export earners when it comes to the US. Of course, the big one is going to be textiles, but there are others as well, like jewelry, gems, and seafood. In time to come, we'll have to see what impact it has on the other sectors, which are very, very vital to this relationship between the ties between US and India. Now, remember, this has been said, but I want to reiterate that the US is India's single largest export market. So any hike in tariff leads to obviously the profit margins decreasing. It reduces competitiveness. It gives other countries an edge over India when it comes to the garment sector and could slow job creation in already stressed sectors. But the broader worry, of course, is going to be this comes at a time when India is trying to position itself as a global manufacturing hub and an alternative to China in Asia.
And talk us through then the Indian government's response to the new tariff regime and in support of the sectors which will be most affected.
Quite obviously, New Delhi perhaps will push back diplomatically. As of now, there's been no word from the government after the announcement came in from DC. But ahead of Washington's announcement, Indian Prime Minister did recently make a remark. And he said, and I'm going to quote him here, "Pressure may increase, but we will all bear it all." So that was the word he had out for the people of his country, assuring them at a time when there was anxiety, there was a lot of nervousness around what next. Now, at home, the government is likely to cushion the blow by offering tax breaks, credit lines, or subsidies. But this perhaps could be for a short term. It's a balancing act, of course. India doesn't want to escalate a trade war with a partner it's had for decades. It's had strong ties with the US, as you would know. It's a critical relationship. But of course, there will be calibrated measures to make sure that this kind of, doesn't get into an escalatory mode. And obviously, there will be support to domestic support to exporters as well back home. So this is the balancing act that India really needs to achieve at this point.
So tell us more about this balancing act, because how will this affect the relationship between these two trading partners? The US, as you say, India's biggest export market.
Well, I think the answer lies with Donald Trump for now. But if you really want me to analyze that for you, I would say the US is India's top trading partner, like you pointed out. It accounts for about $120 billion in goods trade only last year. That's a huge amount. Simply put, it's simply too big to replace in the short term. Yes, India will look beyond the US. It has been for years. But scaling up those markets with the European Union, with Australia, with the Mideast will take time. So it is going to take a while to find alternatives. So for now, India really needs to have an act in place where it can balance what's happening with the US and not really be economically hit severely back home.
Thanks for that, Vedika. Vedika Sud in Delhi.
Let's bring in Piyush. Doshi is the operating partner at the Convergence Foundation. It's really good to have you with us today, as your work spans the bigger themes of economic development in India, but also talking directly to business owners. Let me start by asking, how would you describe the mood among business owners that you've spoken to recently who have relied on easy access to the US market?
Not surprisingly, the mood varies from mildly worried to deeply concerned. If you are in a business where US is maybe a 10 to 20% of your market, or if you are in a business where you are making something very unique, hand-embroidered products, or let's say herbal teas made out of herbs which are only available in India, you are only mildly worried. But yes, there are many manufacturers who are competing directly with many other countries on products purely on cost, they are deeply concerned with the situation. And they have gone into a survival mode. People we talk to are talking about strategies they can deploy to ride this out, and also what they need from the government to support them through the process.
Now, you speaking about survival mode. In our report, we just saw two entrepreneurs, and they were having to lay off their staff and shut down businesses. Is that part of survival mode, laying off staff?
Exactly, it is. And if you think about it, most businesses at this point are, while hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. At this point, there is still a fair degree of optimism that the leadership in the United States will see the unfairness of this move and will course correct. And this will blow off, maybe not immediately, but in the next 3 to 6 months, we will be back to a normal trading situation. India and United States have had excellent trading relationship. They have had channel of talks open. So most of the businesses are actually quite hopeful that this is not a long-term thing. Even if this is not resolved immediately, it will be resolved in the short term. That said, business is business. Every day you lose business. You can't be running idle. And so businesses where there is a substantial cost and low margin, exactly the kind of business you were talking about, like a garments business, there will be need for cooling off, maybe temporarily giving leave, putting people on leave. People who are stuck with large factories and fixed cost, they are thinking differently. Can we look at other markets, maybe operate even on marginal cost basis so that we can amortize some of the costs? So yes, different strategies depending on the nature of the business you are in. But survival is the word I would use.
Let's broaden our view a bit. What do you think these tariffs, even if they will only be in place for 6 months or so, what will they do to the Indian economy on the whole?
Well, look, if you assume that they are there for a year on an annual basis, our calculations suggest that these tariffs impact about $60 billion worth of our export. Worst case, we might lose about 50 to 60% of that. So it could be a loss of $30 to $40 billion worth of exports to the US. It is substantial, but it's not a killer blow. It will probably be a 0.6, 0.7% percentage points on India's GDP. So India is expected to grow at around 6 to 7%. Worst case might shave off a percentage point of that. It's bad in terms of jobs. That would mean job losses anywhere from 3 to 4 million. Again, very large number in its own right. But on a total workforce of 600 million, it is something that India can absorb. If you ask me, I am actually looking at the bright side. If you go back in history, the best moment in India's economic history was also its worst moment. When India was going through an economic crisis in 1991, hardly had 6 weeks of foreign exchange to pay for imports. That's when India did its deepest economic reform, which ushered in a period of 25 years, period of growth, which was twice the rate before that. The current mood in both the political leadership and businesses is, let's not waste this crisis. Yes, it is a blow, but let's use it to reform on some of the long pending reforms, which are politically hard. Let's get going on them. Sooner or later, this will blow away. But the benefit from the reforms, if we manage to get them right at this point, will last much longer. So actually, India might come out net positive out of this.
Piyush Doshi there from the Convergence Foundation in India. Thanks for your time and for sharing your optimism with us.